Jeep's luxury transformation continues with the 5th generation Grand Cherokee. Has Jeep built the American Range Rover? Time to find out. Jared here with carbuzz.com, and Jeep has invited us out to Moab, Utah, home of the prettiest off-road spots in the entire world, to test out the 2022 Jeep Grand Cherokee. Now, earlier this year, Jeep launched the Grand Cherokee L, the first ever 3-row version of its popular Grand Cherokee model. Now we're out here to test the 2-row version to see what it's all about. So now we're gonna hop behind the wheel of the all-new Grand Cherokee, but before we do, now is a great time to remind you to smash that like button, subscribe to our channel, and ring the notification bell to be alerted of our latest videos. Now, back to the Grand Cherokee. Now, the most important thing to note about this new Grand Cherokee is that it truly is all new. There's a new flexible architecture underneath that allows them to extend the wheelbase to create this 2-row model and the 3-row L. It's also a lot lighter thanks to heavy use of aluminum components, and it also allows for electrification, which we'll get into a little bit later in the video. Now, although the architecture is all new, I really can't say the same for the engines under the hood. These are very familiar if you've driven the previous 4th generation Grand Cherokee. The base engine is a 3.6 liter Pentastar V6, and the optional engine is a 5.7 liter Hemi V8, both of which are carryover from the last generation. We're currently driving the base Pentastar V6, which produces 293 horsepower and 260 pound-feet of torque. I would call the acceleration on this adequate. It's definitely not going to throw you back in your seat, but it does have pretty impressive towing capability of 6,200 pounds. The fuel economy is improved by about 1 mpg compared to the previous generation Grand Cherokee, so you'll get about 19 mpg in the city, 26 on the highway. That's with rear-wheel drive. You'll do a little bit worse if you opt for 4-wheel drive, which is about $2,000 extra. And if you get the V8, you automatically get 4-wheel drive. There is no rear-wheel drive V8 model. Speaking of that V8 engine, it's a 5.7 liter. It's a lot more powerful, 357 horsepower, 390 pound-feet of torque. So those are significant gains over this V6 model, but it is a significant price increase. Now, it includes 4-wheel drive, but even after you add the $2,000 for all-wheel drive, the V8 is going to set you back over $3,200. So that's definitely a decision you'll have to make. You get improved towing by about 1,000 pounds, so you'll be able to tow 7,200 pounds, but your fuel economy is going to take a big hit. You're only going to get about 14 mpg in the city and 22 mpg on the highway. So that's definitely something to consider. Now, there is a third drivetrain that I want to mention, the 4xe hybrid. Unfortunately, Jeep did not have one to test today because it's not going to arrive until next year, but it's the same setup you're going to get in the Jeep Wrangler 4xe, a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder mated to an electric motor. Now, this is actually the most powerful version of the Grand Cherokee that you're going to be able to get, with 375 horsepower and 470 pound-feet of torque. And not only is it the most powerful version of the Grand Cherokee that you can buy, but it also goes about 25 miles on electric only range. I'm very excited to drive that when it arrives next year, but for now, you're only going to be able to choose between the V6 and the V8. So now that we've gone over all of the nitty-gritty stuff, let's just talk real quickly about how the Grand Cherokee drives. This has always been a very premium feeling vehicle, but I think with this new generation and new architecture, Jeep has done an even better job of making this a very refined experience. Because we have the Summit Reserve trim, the top of the line model, we've got the Quadralift air suspension that rides really beautifully here on the road. The road noise is very low. I think the steering is very nicely weighted and very direct. And even with the V6 engine, I think the acceleration is adequate, though I'd really be interested to see how the V8 feels when merging onto the highway. Jeep has also added more standard safety tech than we've seen in the past. Adaptive cruise control is now standard here on the Grand Cherokee, and because we have this top trim model, we also have Jeep's available level 2 semi-autonomous driving features, which I think work really well. You have to keep your hands on the wheel for it, but I think Jeep will eventually add hands-free like they will on the Grand Wagoneer. Jeep's a little bit mum about talking about future product, but that's something to look forward to later in the Grand Cherokee's life cycle. Now that we've driven the Grand Cherokee on-road, we're gonna pull over to check out all of the changes here on the cabin, and we will get the Grand Cherokee back out on the move when we take it off-roading. So after driving the Grand Wagoneer earlier this year, I've been very impressed with what Jeep is doing inside of its cabins, and this Grand Cherokee is a complete extension of that. If you drove the previous generation Grand Cherokee, you are going to be blown away at what they've done on this new 5th generation model. We are driving the Summit Reserve trim, which means we have the nicest cabin possible on the new Grand Cherokee. We've got soft materials everywhere, real wood material on the steering wheel and on the dash that looks fantastic, and this very plush leather with beautiful stitching on it. And here on the Summit Reserve, these seats are heated, ventilated, and here on the door you also get a massage function, which is great. I believe that's the first time we've been able to get that on a Grand Cherokee. In terms of technology, the base Grand Cherokee is going to get an 8.4-inch screen, but we've got the larger 10.1-inch display powered by their new Uconnect 5 infotainment system. Now, this technology is incredibly easy to use. I love how user-friendly everything is. You've got these ribbons up here at the top that you can program with whatever you want for quick access. So we have it showing the 360-degree camera for quick access. You can just X out of that. The technology here is very strong. You do have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, both wireless function, and you can even Bluetooth 2 different phones at the same time, which is really convenient if you and your spouse share one vehicle. Also here on this infotainment system, if I come over here to apps, we have some really cool functions. You can actually have a front forward-facing camera. That's going to be great if you do any off-roading. You can see it'll tell you exactly where your wheels are going to go. You can even clean the camera if it gets a little bit muddy. In these apps, we also have the Macintosh app, which is going to show you your decibel levels as you're listening to your music, which is really cool. And it sounds fantastic here on this top trim Grand Cherokee because we have 19 speakers spread throughout the cabin, including a 10-inch subwoofer and powering 950 watts with a 17-channel amplifier. This is one of the best audio systems you can get in any car right now. In addition to the 10-inch touchscreen, you also get a roughly 10-inch driver display here that replaces the analog gauges on this top trim level. This can feature things like night vision, which is very cool. You can also get a full color map or see your audio information. There's also about a 10-inch head-up display that will display that information up on the windshield. Now, before we hop into the back seat, I want to show you this really cool feature up in the front, this passenger display. We first saw this on the Grand Wagoneer, but now the Grand Cherokee has it as well. It blends in very well with the gloss black when it's turned off. When it's turned on, your passenger here has plenty that they can do. They can input a navigation destination for you. They can also listen or watch on their own content. You can even plug in your own Bluetooth headphones to this screen to listen to your own content. So the passenger used to be kind of the worst seat in the house up front because they didn't really have much to enjoy. Now Jeep has given them something really cool that ties in with what's in the back. Finally, moving on to the back seat, this is a very great place to be on any Grand Cherokee model, but especially on this Summit Reserve. We've got plenty of knee room here. They've extended that by about 1 inch compared to the last generation model. You can also recline your seat just a bit, which is quite nice as well. On this top trim level, we have heated and ventilated seats back here with our own climate controls, so very luxurious for the kids. You also have 2 USB ports, 2 USB-C ports, and a household outlet to charge up all of their devices. But those are not the coolest features. You've probably noticed these really nice entertainment screens here. This is what I really want to focus on here because rear entertainment systems used to kind of suck. They would have like a DVD player in it, but this one is a lot more special because you get one of these. Now, if you have a smart TV in your house, you probably recognize this as an Alexa remote. That is because Jeep has integrated Fire TV into this screen right here. So you can use this remote to watch Netflix, Amazon Prime Video, YouTube, HBO Max, whatever streaming service you have, you can watch it in your house, and then when your kids pause their program, they can literally come out to the car and resume exactly where they left. Both of these screens are completely independent, and that person up front can tune in to watch whatever one of the kids is watching. This has completely revolutionized rear seat entertainment. Now that we've driven the Grand Cherokee and checked out the interior, let's see some of the styling changes on the outside, which I think Jeep has really done a great job redesigning the Grand Cherokee. It has this very macho, very aggressive look while also remaining very premium. They've kept the 7-slot iconic grille, and it changes a little bit depending on which of the 7 trim levels you get. Since we have the Summit Reserve, we have a very blingy grille right here, but you can get a more plain one on models like the Laredo and the Trailhawk, and this area is going to change as well. But no matter which Grand Cherokee you get, you're going to get LED headlights and LED fog lights, which I think is a really nice touch towards making the Grand Cherokee look like a more premium vehicle. Here on the side, the new Grand Cherokee is 3.4 inches longer than the previous generation with a 2-inch increase in wheelbase. Now that's going to help the interior space as we've seen, but it also gives this a very nice looking stance. For the first time ever, we have 21-inch wheels available on a Grand Cherokee model on this Summit Reserve trim, and I think the pattern really reminds me of the old first generation Grand Cherokee, which is a really cool throwback in my opinion. We've also got Grand Cherokee spelled out big on the side. This has been a Grand Cherokee standout feature for a while. They've added the American flag right here, which is really nice. And then we have this optional black roof, which I think really gives this some Range Rover vibes, adding to that premium feel. It also looks like it's floating based on how this C-pillar is designed. Now here at the back, they've really thinned out the taillights here, a lot thinner and wider than the previous generation Grand Cherokee, giving it a more premium feel. I think it might take a little bit time to get used to because the old taillights were a little bit more macho. I think they look fine, but it might take some getting used to compared to the previous generation Grand Cherokee. We're going to wrap up the interior by focusing on the cargo space, which here on the 2-row Grand Cherokee offers 37.7 cubic feet, which is more than what you're going to get on a Nissan Murano or a Chevy Blazer, but it's a little bit less than what you're going to get on the big boy Honda Passport, which is like the biggest car in this class. Now, if you fold down those seats, you'll get about 70.7 cubic feet of space, which is quite good. The only thing that's a little bit annoying is there are no way to put down the seats here from the trunk. For that, you'll have to get the Grand Cherokee L, which gets a little bit more cargo space, and you get a 3rd row here in the back. Now, if you want your Grand Cherokee to be a little bit more rugged and less luxurious, you should opt for the Trailhawk. This is the trail-rated version of the Grand Cherokee, the most off-road focused one you can get. It comes as standard with the Quadra-Lift air suspension, enabling up to 11.3 inches of ground clearance. It also gets some really cool off-road goodies like a sway bar disconnect in the front, steel skid plates underneath, some cool red tow hooks. You also get smaller 18-inch wheels with all-terrain tires and a hood decal that's functional because it prevents sun glare. Now, if you get the 4xe version of the Trailhawk, which is going to come next year, all of those red accents are going to change to a really cool blue. This model also gets the beefiest 4x4 system, one of 3 available on the Grand Cherokee. It's called Quadra Drive 2. This is the most off-road focused of all of the 4x4 systems because it has a full transfer case featuring a rear electronic limited slip differential with terrain select. So that allows you to select different off-road modes, including rock, sand and mud, and snow. And Jeep didn't just fly us out to Moab to look at the pretty scenery. They wanted us to experience the trail-rated Grand Cherokee Trailhawk. So we have it in its rock mode, lifting the suspension up as high as it goes. We also have our differential locked. We also have the sway bar disconnected. So we are going up these hills, no problems whatsoever. We've got our screen engaged so we can actually see what we're looking at, even though we are pointed at the sky right now. Otherwise, you would be completely blind as to where your wheels are. But using this front camera, I can place the front end of the car perfectly. So even if you're a novice off-roader, this Grand Cherokee is going to conquer any obstacle you can throw at it. So that was the 2022 Jeep Grand Cherokee. If you want the base Laredo trim with the V6 engine and rear-wheel drive, you can get one starting at about $36,000 before destination. It goes way up from there. That Trailhawk off-road version that I showed you is going to start in the $50,000 range and get up to the mid-50,000s if you want that V8 engine. Now, this Summit Reserve super luxury model that we've been driving starts at about $63,000 and gets up to about $66,000 if you want the V8. So the Grand Cherokee definitely punches into luxury territory when it comes to pricing, but as we've seen in this video, Jeep has definitely justified that with amazing technology and luxury amenities. You just have to decide whether or not the Jeep brand screams luxury to you. In my opinion, it definitely does. We really hope you've enjoyed this review of the 2022 Jeep Grand Cherokee. For more information, be sure to check out carbuzz.com, and it would really help if you left us a like, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell. I'll see you next time.